Welcome to part 3 of the ongoing fight in Farmington. If you haven't already, be sure to watch parts 1 and 2. Links are in the description as we continue the story into the new year of 2025. January 14th, 2025, Castle Rock Township held a public hearing for its residents. The Board of Supervisors asked for input from the community on whether to join the fight against the city of Farmington. That evening, the board voted to move forward with legal action.
Tonight, a community effort to stop a development in Farmington of a massive data center. And tonight it's getting new support. Members of the Coalition for Responsible Data Center Development showed up at Castle Rock Township's council meeting tonight. Residents of Farmington and the township voiced concerns about the location of the incoming data center and the company that would manage it. The development contract's already been approved in Farmington, but in a post on social media today, the coalition says the Castle Rock Township has joined its legal fight against it. We reached out to Farmington town leaders for confirmation, but we have not heard back.
Many local residents reached out to their state senator and House representative, sharing their concerns about the proposed data center and seeking assistance. On January 16, 2025, Senator Bill Liskey, along with Representative Drew Roach, met with several local citizens and presented a draft of his bill, Senate File 608. This bill aimed to prohibit Minnesota cities from permitting enterprise data centers, defined as facilities larger than 800,000 square feet, in any zoning district other than industrial. If passed, SF 608 would have stopped Farmington's proposed data center from being built. TREC's project will be 3 times that size at 2.53 million square feet, and the land it is intended for is currently zoned mixed-use commercial industrial. Representative Drew Roach introduced House File 1109 on February 19th as the companion to Senator Liskey's bill, as the Minnesota House's start to the 2025 session was delayed by a weeks-long quorum dispute.
Leah, Senator Bill Liskey says several data centers are going up in his district, and he's generally in favor of them. The difference between the massive proposal here in Farmington and all the rest of them is its proximity to residential homes.
I have not heard of any other being built on former residential properties. So that's what's most shocking to me.
State Senator Bill Liskey started hearing resident concerns around the same time we did last summer.
There was no communication give and take. It was, we're doing this, and the constituents were yelling, hey, but what about this? What about that? And no one was listening to them.
It all led Senator Liskey to write this bill, which would only allow data centers larger than 800,000 square feet on industrial land.
It's basically saying, hey, if you want to build a data center, that's great. You just have to build it where it makes sense.
In separate statements, neither Farmington nor TRACT takes a formal position on the bill. Farmington saying it's concerned the legislation, quote, would impact the ability of local governments to make decisions at the local level. And TRACT plans to move forward, saying the data center has strong support and it will, quote, strengthen the city's tax base and provide $18 million directly to the Farmington Public School District.
It would bring in more taxes. There's no question about it. Again, it's a multi-billion-dollar building.
You said that it sounds like there has been lobbying against your legislation.
Oh, absolutely there was. And again, generally, I don't agree regulations on businesses. That's not who I normally am. But in this case, the constituents are being hurt, and so they need to be heard. And that's the purpose of this legislation.
The bill never made it out of committee. Introduced in the Senate on January 27th, it was referred to the State and Local Government Committee. While a hearing was scheduled for February 20th, it was ultimately removed from the agenda, and the bill was left without further consideration. After months of delay, the City of Farmington finally agreed to a joint meeting with the Castle Rock Township Board. According to the Orderly Annexation Agreement, Paragraph 10.1a requires that when there is a dispute over the interpretation of any provision, the City and Township must first meet to try to resolve the matter through negotiation. That meeting took place on January 30th, 2025. Present were the mayor, all City Council members with their attorneys, as well as the full Township Board and their attorney. Castle Rock's attorney, Andrew Teedy, opened with a statement followed by a brief remark from Township Supervisor David Nicolai. In response, Mayor Hoyt and the Farmington City Council refused to comment or engage in any discussion, citing the pending lawsuit. The entire meeting lasted 4 minutes. February 11th, 2025, Castle Rock Township enters the legal battle, filing its own lawsuit against the City of Farmington. This new suit doesn't stop with the city. It also names Tract, ISD 192, and the Olsons, the current owners of the golf course. With that filing, Farmington now faces 2 active lawsuits, and this one came with an additional request, an injunction to halt the project. On March 21st, the City of Farmington filed a motion to dismiss the lawsuit filed by Castle Rock Township. On April 7th, a hearing was held for a decision on the request for injunctive relief, and on June 20th, Castle Rock's motion for a temporary injunction preventing the city from moving forward with activity on the land parcels was denied. A hearing to address the city's motion to dismiss this lawsuit was held on July 31st. The judge has up to 90 days to provide a decision after this hearing. What is happening with the coalition lawsuit? On February 14th, the City of Farmington filed a motion to dismiss the coalition's lawsuit. A hearing was held on April 2nd, and on May 28th, the judge ruled in favor of the coalition. The city's motion was denied. All 3 of the coalition's claims were upheld. The court also approved consolidating the 2 related lawsuits. With this ruling, the case now moves forward into discovery and depositions. The City of Farmington continued pushing forward with its request for a comprehensive plan amendment from the Metropolitan Council. This amendment was required to redesignate the land slated for the data center from primarily agricultural and residential use to mixed-use commercial industrial. Without Met Council approval, the zoning changes adopted by the City Council on November 4, 2024 could not take effect. On April 21st, the Met Council subcommittee held a hearing on the amendment. In the days leading up to the meeting, several residents received emails stating that public comments are not typically permitted, resulting in low attendance. However, once the hearing began, the chairman did allow some residents who were present to speak.
Why is the Farmington Technology Park on the agency's agenda for today? What are you planning a vote today?
Why this is on the agenda today and why we're reviewing? Okay, the City of Farmington wished to amend its future land use to allow a technology park to go in.
What is being argued in here is the City of Farmington is violating an orderly annexation agreement with Castle Rock Township. That's a lawful agreement.
So it's not approving any specific project?
Not approving, but you're moving the steps forward and making it much more difficult to stop it. This particular project would be the 8th largest in the world as of the 1st of January 2024. 250 feet from residents' houses. It does not belong near residential property. And if you're allowing the next step in the comp plan approval, you're just going along with it. I mean, this is heavy industrial. It does not belong next to residential zoning.
Thank you for allowing this item to be in front of you today. My name is Lynn Gorski, and I'm the City Administrator for Farmington. And I just want to give you our appreciation and give staff appreciation for all the hard work and working with us together on this. And we support the staff recommendation. So thank you.
And with that, the subcommittee unanimously voted to approve the amendment.
All in approval, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? That carries.
May 14th, 2025. Farmington's comprehensive plan amendment went before the full Metropolitan Council. Residents were told that public comments on the amendment itself would not be allowed. Those who attended spoke about broader issues, transparency, common sense decision-making, and the responsibility of local governments to listen to their communities. Residents urged the council to delay the vote. That request was denied.
To undermine and neglect zoning, comp plans, and residential rights every time a local city asks, it defies logic. To say as long as they have checked some boxes removes the entire reason for zoning and comp plans. You have a duty to analyze and decide what works, what's right, and what is appropriate for the people of Minnesota, as well as those best businesses. Due to the outdated and unregulated local ordinances, if nobody steps up and does what's right for the residents of Minnesota, we're all going to suffer the same fate. Please help keep businesses by businesses and industrial by industrial and homes by homes. Take the time to understand the difference in the free and how they don't coexist well together.
The item before us has generated a lot of interest, concerns, and feedback from residents, elected officials, and business people from the area. I have spoken at length with more people on this issue than any other in my 16 years on the council. The 250-foot setback with berms and vegetation is an acknowledgement of the need for a buffer. We do not have the authority to rule on whether that is the right answer. Our role is just to check that the applicant did consider the concerns. I really feel for the residents on this. I have talked with many of them. I drive past there frequently, and I have friends on both sides of this issue that are not speaking to each other because of all of this. It's been very, very stressful, and I take what we do very seriously. If I had the authority to vote on whether I liked it or thought it was a good idea, I would do that. But I am respectful of what state law says with regard to land use, and that's not something that can be part of my decision. I do this because I care deeply about the community, and this has been a really, really hard thing to go through. I've worked countless hours talking with residents and staff and trying to make sure that we do the right thing. If I could find a way to say that it was a substantial departure from regional system plans, I would absolutely vote no. But I have to uphold state law, which is why I am going to vote yes on this item. So thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Councilmember Wolf. I know this is a hard vote for you. I, just like you, have served in local government as a city council member and a mayor for a very long time. So I really, really have a lot of empathy for what you're going through. Having been a city council member and mayor where development plans were coming through, we had a lot more authority when we were acting legislatively to say no to development when we could and when it was right. If I was in your shoes, I'd be sitting where you are right now, and I'd be saying the same things. The battle is at your city council. That's where they have the authority to do this. I think our hearts are all with you tonight. I get it where you're coming from, and yet we have to follow state law. So given the scenario that we have before us, I'm going to be voting yes as well, but it's one of those that makes my stomach turn because I know what you're going through. So I just want you to know that we too try to carry ourselves with integrity and also with empathy and sympathy for what you're going through. So I wish I could vote differently, but this just is not our role in this entire process. I encourage you to just get back to the city of Farmington and do what you need to do to pressure them. They've got the authority to make this change.
After discussion, the amendment was approved.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, that motion carried.
Minnesota's 2025 legislative session. Many residents became politically active, speaking out about the rapid expansion of hyperscale data centers in Minnesota. Senate File 608, the bill led by Senator Bill Liskey, was a bipartisan effort, co-authored by Senator Aaron May Quaid, Senator Jennifer McEwen, Senator Nathan Wessenberg, and Senator Glenn Grunhagen. As mentioned, it ultimately stalled under pressure from powerful lobbying groups. However, other bills continued to emerge throughout the session. Some, like House File 2928, authored by Representative Patty Acomb, sought to impose stronger environmental and regulatory standards on data centers. Others, like Senate File 1393, authored by Senator Andrew Matthews, pushed in the opposite direction, seeking to loosen regulations. Residents testified at hearings to educate lawmakers about the environmental impacts of data centers and to highlight the lack of protections for Minnesota homeowners when large corporations, shielded by NDAs and armed with financial promises, exert influence over cash-strapped local governments.
Establish guidelines. Placing them in residential communities is inappropriate. Placing them next to environmentally fragile areas is inappropriate. And now is the time to holistically look at the pros and cons, the advantages of data centers, and do it right. Ensure that the transparency and accountability and ensure the promised financial benefits of data centers are balanced and don't discriminate against the quality of life of Minnesota citizens.
You know, a couple interesting things. I don't know if anybody followed, but Bill Gates is a religious disciple of the Green New Deal. But you know what he's doing for his data centers? He's refurbishing 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant. So I think, members, we need to seriously think some modification of what we passed last session, because these data centers are going to want base load electricity. Even Bill Gates understands that. The second thing is, I have a brother-in-law who lives in a house, and it's right across the street from a new data center. Well, not a couple years old already. And it does create a lot of noise for that residential area. It was built right across the street. And the thing is, they did do a noise study, and they did do a lot of effort to reduce the noise. But even according to the last test, which was last March, I believe, there's still 2 decibels over state requirement. So these facilities, and I do want to acknowledge Kathy Johnson, they do need to be built a certain distance away from residential areas, because it's causing a lot of aggravation.
After testifying 4 times this session, what I perceive is a push to make it easier for hyperscale data centers to come into our state, diminishing regulations which protect Minnesota's resources and our quality of life. Senator Lieb, who testified earlier today, testified at another hearing earlier, stating that the AUAR is not a robust enough tool for evaluating the impact of generators. Similarly, a representative from the EQB stated that the AUR is for classic development in a community like residential, warehousing, light industrial, and cannot be used for heavy industrial projects, which hyperscale data centers most certainly are. But properly locate them away from residential communities.
Senator Jennifer McEwen attempted to add an amendment onto Senate File 1393.
The bill, and then the language of the A3 amendment, prohibits municipalities from allowing enterprise data centers in any zoning district, except that municipalities may permit an enterprise data center as a conditional use in an industrial district. So it addresses the zoning issues that a lot of communities are having with some of these data centers coming into municipalities, in some cases engaging with local officials and having a non-disclosure agreement so the public can't actually find out what the conditions of the agreement actually were, and perhaps being zoned in places that community wouldn't want them to be zoned in. So Senator Liskey came up with this creative solution, in which I support, and I'd like you all of my colleagues to consider that this is an industrial use, and it should be treated as such.
I am testifying in support of Representative Acom's bill as it attempts to establish much-needed guardrails for hyperscale data centers. I feel the bill has great merit in tightening the parameters by which hyperscalers can come into Minnesota and use our precious resources. We're not against data centers, but concerned about the siting. I asked the legislature for protection from behemoth projects being pushed on us in residential neighborhoods by predatory development. With the upcoming budget negotiations, as you seek to strike a balance between data centers and residents, please remember your constituents. Do not sacrifice the precious quality of life for Minnesotans.
The coalition joined forces with several advocacy organizations, including CURE, MCEA, the Sierra Club, and Minnesota Women's Press, to fight for more responsible data center legislation. What data center legislation ultimately passed in Minnesota? House File 16. Approved during the special session, the bill was widely seen as falling short, offering limited new protections for Minnesota residents and containing no restrictions on where data centers can be built. The new law requires large facilities to pay $2 to $5 million annually based on peak power demand, extends the IT equipment sales tax exemption to 35 years while removing the exemption for electricity, mandates prevailing wages for construction, and requires a water review by the DNR for users over 100 million gallons a year. It also creates a very large customer utility class with PUC oversight, requires clean energy tariff options, and mandates green building certification within 3 years or repayment of tax breaks. Many felt the law didn't go far enough to safeguard residents or the environment. Critics argued it lacked concrete limits on where data centers could be sited and failed to enforce meaningful environmental protections. In short, opponents felt the law put economic incentives for data center development ahead of the needs of Minnesota communities. Data requests. On October 16, 2024, residents filed a Freedom of Information Act request for city records. The first batches started arriving on February 5, 2025. Emails detailed many things, including actions taken by city staff before the very first public hearing on May 14, 2024, when the Planning Commission was set to vote on rezoning the golf course and ISD 192 land to mixed-use commercial industrial. On April 17th, in an email from the developer to the city, thank you for the opportunity to provide some guidance in the zoning overlay standards for data centers based on current industry standards and to facilitate the highest potential for economic benefit. We suggest the following. On April 29th, Farmington City staff to the developer. As we try to build out a schedule, wanted to touch base with you to see when you would like to see the rezoning go before the Planning Commission. The developer's reply to city staff. Great news regarding the annexation. I just tried calling you. I'd like to discuss format for the rezoning hearing. On April 30th, 14 days before the public hearing, city staff to the developer. Another thing we would like to discuss today pertains to the available data center facts that you may have compiled over time that can be provided to offset the anti-data center groups that may be organizing. We would like to prepare fact sheets for our City Council and Planning Commission preemptively as a resource. I'm sure you have experienced some level of NIMBYism with each project, and these groups likely all focus on the same things: noise, water, electromagnetic fields, etc. Any information that you have compiled over the years and can be shared would be appreciated. May 7th, 7 days before the public hearing, City staff to the developer and their reply. The attached comments give you a sense of what the opposition is, which really isn't a surprise. Since you have been through this a time or two, this is probably similar to what you have seen experienced before. This leads us to a request for some guidance on how to offset the opposition but without talking about a project. We are meeting with the Planning Commission Chair on Friday afternoon to talk about the action item and to coach him on staying on task during the hearing. He is an excellent chair, very seasoned. Again, any assistance would be appreciated. The developer? On it. We'll work with the team to craft some talking points in addition to the FAQ responses. On May 9th, 5 days before the public hearing, the city staff received talking points for Farmington, PC, and Town Council from the developer. Talking points were emailed later that day to the Planning Commission Chair, the Mayor, and City Council members. Residents also discovered that a city staff member who had initially contacted one of the coalition's earliest organizers with questions using a personal email address had been added to an early email list by the organizer. Over the next 6 months, starting April 25th, this staff member forwarded at least 70 messages from those communications to internal city staff. On March 3, 2025, the Minneapolis Star-Tribune published an article on the pending project, drawing from the city data and emails they had requested. On February 18th, ethics complaints were submitted to the City of Farmington. They requested an investigation and outlined how the actions by the city may have included breach of public trust and neutrality, undermining the integrity of the public hearing process, undue influence and abuse of position, and manipulation of public discourse and collusion between city officials and the developer. The residents' position in short: cities in Minnesota are expected to serve as impartial stewards, making transparent land use decisions in the public's interest. On March 27th, the City of Farmington responded to the ethics complaints. They determined that the complaints were unsubstantiated, disposed of in their entirety, and no disciplinary action was taken. At the time of this video, residents continue to regularly go to council meetings during open comments to be heard. On June 16, 2025, 14 residents spoke during open comments to the city.
These are moms and dads, sons and daughters, husbands and wives that are your residents that are asking for your help to make a difference.
We need more space. 250 feet from a bedroom window is not enough space. It's a 700 megawatts of power in a 50-foot tall building, 250 feet from a bedroom window. Please, please give us more space.
I'd like to feel like we are valued and our opinions do matter.
And I'm just hoping that at the end of this, if there is any way, once the non-disclosure agreement is kind of over and done with, project is started, if we as residents will find out why NDAs were used, but also how they made it very non-transparent to all of us.
We all deserve a safe place to live without having to move, without being forced from our homes. We all deserve to hear birds sing and see stars shine. We all deserve bread and roses.
Couple things. So the first thing is I've talked about this being a zoning issue from day one, and this still is a zoning issue. I asked at the last time that we all got together and spoke, mostly me speaking, you listening-ish, but I asked for you to define what an industrial was. I've got 0 emails. I've got nothing from the city attorney. I've got nothing from anyone at the city defining exactly what industrial is to you all and how or what you based your decision on to put a full industrial project into a mixed-use commercial industrial zone. What defines industrial? I'm going to ask you that again. This is the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 7th, I don't know how many times now, but what is that? Define it.
So I come from a construction background. I've personally benefited from working on data centers myself. I've done 3 projects. However, I'd like to point out a key difference between what we are planning to do here in Farmington and what I've done. Every single one of those places was built in a designated industrial zone away from residential buildings. And therefore, it's more suited for that type of use.
2017, I retired. So it really hurt when our mayor came out to our neighborhood early on in this, and with the questions we were asking, he got defensive and said, if you don't like it, you can always move, which really hurts. No, it's not that easy. I'd pay twice as much to have the same house built somewhere else to match the interest rates and the loss of equity because of what's going to take place in my backyard. I just wish that you guys had a little bit of compassion for your residents and treat your residents as Team Farmington also.
And I don't know whose job it is to bring business into this community, but I read that 2040 plan, and I read the amendments to the 2040 plan, all 900, almost 1,000 pages of it on our website. And instead of sticking with the plan that so many people that have come years and decades before you to plan the dignified, structured growth of this city, you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater and hoping to fix a mouse hole that's tube of dynamite, and it's kind of gross.
And I want to leave you with, when this is all said and done, I probably won't be here. I might be very well dead. But Farmington will have to answer to its future residents, these children, and all the other children. Thank you.
A few weeks later, on July 7th, came a rebuttal during a city council meeting.
Repeatedly, we are asked what the benefits of the project are. The answer, short and simple: property tax revenue.
How can you help? Like this video and then share it with friends and neighbors in Farmington, Dakota County, Minnesota, and nationwide. Links to Part 1 and Part 2 are in the description along with other important links. Learn more by going to our website, datacenterresponsibility.com. Join us on our Facebook, Coalition for Responsible Data Center Development. And please consider a donation. We need your help for this legal fight. A link is in the description. Thank you for watching.